Hi everyone, comic book reviewer here. This time reviewing on issue 1 of Brightest Day. Now, as you know, Brightest Day was meant to be a continuation from the Blackest Night DC comic series that actually deals with the aftermaths of Blackest Night, but bringing back characters who have been dead for quite some time, and their purpose in the story. So the cover mainly has Hal Jordan trying to lift the White Lantern up, and everyone watching. And the story starts off with two sheriffs saying, it's not Hal here. Think this is the son of this glowing doohickey? Hell, if I know Russell, maybe. Both. So of course they try to kind of lift up the lantern to little to no skills. But of course they end up seeing from the skies Green Lantern, Star Sapphire, and Sinestro. And we do kind of see how Sinestro goes a little too far, but of course Hal has to remind him not to go overboard. And this is Sinestro thinking that he's doing nothing wrong and expects some respect. But Star Sapphire has to point out they did a temporary truce. But I have to wonder, obviously, about this sort of white light that brought everyone back, but obviously now a lantern. So of course they figure that maybe this is meant to be another part of the spectrum, which obviously even Hal knows he can't really lift it up. And of course tries his best to little to no skills, but figures out that it must be like the story The Sword in the Stone, where King Arthur lifted Excalibur. So obviously, since the White Lantern is meant to be the sword, King Arthur is obviously meant to be Dead Man, who was brought back to life. And obviously, just as it seems like he's going to try to help save the day and stop some questionable pirates, right away we see how the lantern takes him away. And instead, Aquaman and Mera show up, try to take on the pirates. And right away, we see how they basically are kicking butts and taking names. And we kind of see how Aquaman tries to call on the help of one of his sea allies, but turns out it's something far worse. And it's obviously meant to be a dead giant squid, showing that links to his old powers when he was a Black Lantern is still there. And we see Mera saying, it's killing everyone, Arthur. Tell it to stop. I'm crying. But of course, we see how obviously a sort of giant dead shark shows up, kills one of the pirates, and even Arthur's trying to make sense of this newfound power and ability. And we see how obviously at a fishing market shop, we see how Black Manta is living his normal life now, and when he hears about Aquaman, this is like being a hunter knowing that your prey has returned, and ends up killing the locals in the shop, basically blood and all. And we see how at the university in Pittsburgh, we see how obviously Ronnie and Jason are finding it hard to get along after what happened to his girlfriend and him being brought back to life. And obviously this is them trying to work together to little to no avail. And we see how obviously on Mars, Martian Manhunter has been brought back to life as well after the events of Final Crisis. And right away he's trying to rebuild his society again. And we see how he's trying to kind of keep not only himself under control, but part of his old personality when he was a Black Lantern. And even remembers the professor who brought him to Earth, but has to make sense of the woman on the floor. And of course, journeys it off to Earth to find her. And right away, we see how Hawkman and Hawkgirl try to kind of deal with some sort of black market dealers who find some remains. And right away, they try to take them on. They get into the plane, try to kind of find out what's inside. And it turns out it's their remains from their first previous life, given the fact Hawkman and Hawkgirl in the whole Carter Hall and his wife thing is that they've been reincarnated multiple times, and of course try to flee off the ship and try to take down whoever's left. And of course has to kind of save some of the henchmen before it explodes. And turns out the person who is after the bodies is Half-Set, who's obviously meant to be the thing that keeps killing them throughout different timelines. And we see how obviously Black Manta destroys his old house, goes into the ocean to get back his sort of Black Manta gear, leading up to the next issue, which is the end of Firestorm. And this is the story. So I think issue 1 is an interesting idea. It is meant to show the aftermaths of Blackest Night. We kind of see how some characters are coming to terms with everything going on. Some of them are trying to find it hard to get along. And it makes sense showing that, well, one danger stopped. The aftermaths and dealing with it from the sort of results is going to come with a lot more uneasy problems than you originally asked for. Definitely a good story, definitely interesting to start off the aftermaths of Blackest Night that goes from a whole zombie apocalypse storyline to something about obviously being brought back to life, trying to come to terms with everything that happened, and trying to keep yourself under control with everything going on. So it definitely deserves a thumbs up. Still good, and still alright. So, Comic Book Reviewer here, signing out.